for this AIMA YLC event. This is the first one that we're doing under the Special Interest Group for Art and Culture. I'm really proud that my friend Anubhav here and I are co-chairing this as an initiative under YLC. We thought the most meaningful thing that we could possibly do during this time would be to invite somebody who's been a mentor to Anubhav for a really long time, somebody for whom I have the respect. He's truly a legend in the field of arts, and I'm going to request Anubhav to introduce him.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Bindu. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And, when we thought about a session for the arts and culture, my first question was, who's going to attend it? But then, of course, our friends at YLC, Rajni and the team, everyone was very confident that since we are looking at different aspects of management, there is an interest in the arts and culture. Keeping that in mind, we thought of inviting Sanjoy, who has got a very strong aesthetic side as well as a management side, and he's done some really groundbreaking work. Just a few lines from the official bio, just so that we know who we are speaking with, and we can have questions accordingly. Sanjoy Roy is the managing director of Teamwork Arts, which produces over 25 highly acclaimed performing arts, visual arts, and literary festivals across the world, including the world's largest literary gathering, the annual Jaipur Literature Festival. The other aspect about Sanjoy that I want to bring in over here, which a lot of people may not necessarily know, is Sanjoy is also a founder trustee at the Salam Balak Trust, which is a 30-year-old organization and looks after street and working children. And I think the organization has served more than 100,000 children over these last decades. And, there's been a lot of phenomenal work, especially the usage or the adoption of arts in the programming for Salam Balak Trust, for which the White House recognized the trust as the US President's Committee of Arts and Humanities award was given to SBT about 3 years back. And that is also a very special way in which Sanjoy and I connected. With Sanjoy's influence and all his bullying, I got to be a trustee at the Salam Balak Trust about 7 years ago, and it's been an amazing journey. And Sanjoy is a mentor to many, many, many children there, and that's how even I guess he became my mentor as well. And besides all the bullying and everything else, it's a lot to learn from Sanjoy. And I think if I say anything more, Sanjoy will start slashing his wrists. That's one of his favorite phrases. Sanjoy.
Hi, Anubhav. Thanks. Thank you, Bindu. Thanks, Anubhav. Thanks, AIMA, for doing this. Contrary to what everybody thinks, much of what I've achieved is because I have long hair. So everybody grow your hair and you'll be able to do the same thing. It's sort of like the Jason syndrome.
So yeah, I've been trying to grow my hair, but I think I'm losing it now. Anyways, Sanjoy, I want to ask you a little bit about mentorship, because mentorship in the arts, in any field, is so important. And you've clearly been a mentor to so many people in different ways. So could you talk? And having said that, formal mentorship is something that is not easily accessible, especially in the arts. Of course, we do have the Guru Shishya Parampara and all of those things in our culture, but in a practical way, in a day-to-day way, could you tell us a little bit about your role as a mentor in different people's lives?
Thanks, Anubhav. I mean, I personally don't see myself as a mentor because I'm learning all the time. I think that's one of the biggest advantages of being in the creative industry, that every day you wake up and every day you learn something more than perhaps you teach. I think people come to me for advice and therefore they think I'm mentoring them. But in many ways, it's really about trying to extend out into the world or in concentric circles, a sense of what and why creativity and the arts is important. I really believe that if anybody across the spectrum, science, technology, business, industry, manufacturing, wants to be successful, they have to have their left and right side of their brain aligned, and they have to be in a position where they can think not just out of the box, but really move the box and then think. Not just open a door to many new opportunities, but perhaps also know when they should turn around, look behind them, and see perhaps an open window looking out into a beautiful or a different future. Therein lies the interest. And I think one of the things that perhaps the reason why people think that I'm so successful is that because I travel and I meet people 24/7, no time for, or pre-COVID at least, no time for jet lag and so on and so forth. And every concentric circle of people who I have met and I have enjoyed meeting, because you hear their stories, you learn about their trials and tribulations, you take some of that on board, and as your hair continues to grow long, people look at people like me in terms of us having the advantage of collective knowledge, which is really what this is. Because I have seen the way, whether it's a Singapore or Western, something that happened in Western Australia, or what we've done in South Africa and Zimbabwe, and much of the work that we've done is always looked at not just working with artists and artisans who are celebrated and known, but also looking at how the arts can and does make a tangible difference in the lives of people. And I'll give you two examples, and perhaps that will answer some of the question about mentorship. So in 2000, the then Minister of Interior in Western Australia had heard about the work that we'd been doing at Salam Balak Trust, marrying the arts with the cause, with the social cause of street children. And he was very keen to see if there was an opportunity in Western Australia to use some of that knowledge. And the problem that they posed to me was, they said that, the Aboriginal population in Australia is 2%. The prison population of Aboriginals in Australia is 98%. The prison population in and around this area in Western Australia near Kalgoorlie, which is the deepest open mine in the world, is 100%, which means that from cradle to grave, baby to great grandfather or grandmother, everybody has been incarcerated at some point of time, which is beyond ridiculous. So this is the problem proposition that they brought to me. And I remember, going down to Kalgoorlie with the minister, his bureaucrats, the head of police, blah, blah, blah. And when I understood what the problem was, we met the community elders, we met the people there, and I realized that the solution was fairly simple. It wasn't a complex solution, but perhaps it needed somebody from outside to be able to give them that solution. So what's the solution we gave them? I said to them that, the biggest problem they had is that when the Aboriginal population came in every Thursday or Friday, depending on dole night, because, the way some of these economies work is they give them dole as in return for the guilt of owning their land and mining their land, rather than training them to do things which will make them dependent on themselves. So the dole is this guilt fee. So what they used to do is they used to come in for dole on a Thursday night. So say in a strip of buildings, the dole office was this, next to it was the bar, then the brothel, then whatever, the supermarket. And the last building on this road was the police station. So they got their dole. They don't understand counting of money. So I was there in a situation which really brought it home. So this Lady goes in, buys whatever, chewing gum or a bottle, and she gives the person a $100 Australian dollar bill. And the change that she gets was, four $20 bills, Australian $20 bills, and, a couple of other, one $5 and whatever. And she was like, no, you're cheating me. So this lady in front of me then takes the money back and counts out $31 bills. And the lady is satisfied because she thinks she's received more money. Right. And then, another gentleman, then they go to the brothel, they go to the supermarket, and they all fight because they're drunk, they get arrested, and the cycle goes. So what is it that we did? So all I said to them is, I said, you need to do three things. I said, one is track this sociologically with the University of Perth. I said, every Sunday, or every whatever, dole day, you send out your van with the dole and send out the supermarket van. Make sure that the bottles of booze that you're sending out in the supermarket van is equivalent to what we call a paua, as opposed to a big bottle. Ration that. And we then created, with these 15 different Aboriginal nomadic communities in that 100-kilometer radius, a visual arts installation program where we said to the elders, you and your tribe, tell us about your story and use the material that you would normally use in your area to tell us the story. And they created, over 6 months, the most incredible visual outdoor open air installation. Of course, the only problem is that you could see it from a helicopter because it was stretched over 100-kilometer radius. But in doing that, in 6 months, what is it that they found? That the incidence level of incarceration came down to 27%. Wow. 27% from 100%. This is not rocket science stuff. Similarly, in South Africa, in Johannesburg, the city of Johannesburg, Newtown, which is the central business district, they had heard what we'd done in New York with the mayor's office in the mid-90s, etc., which was a whole property development thing with arts as an angle. And they reached out to our ambassador, our consul general there, Navdeep Suri. And, Indians, you're talking about, 1995, 96 or 2000. When Navdeep called me to say, you have to come down, they really are keen to meet you, I was like, Africa? No way. Plus, there's no flatbed, there's no direct flight. I've never been. And listen, we in India are so racist. I was like, no way am I coming to Africa. I don't know where it is and blah, blah, blah. I don't know. Anyway, he said, come for one day. So anyway, I finally agree. I fly down for one day. Navdeep has set up all of these meetings. We drive around Newtown. What I understand is, ever since the apartheid regime fell, what happened is that the average gun possession in South Africa was 5:1. So 5 guns or instruments of attack per one person. And they did an amnesty program where they asked people to, hand over their guns and stuff. But not everybody did. And the South African, basically like the Indian, had that DNA of protesting everything, meaning you broke every law because that was what you did. Right. Every law. And because the African economy opened and apartheid was removed, everybody from the rest of Africa made a beeline into South Africa and into Johannesburg, where the bus stop and the railway station were. As a result of which, it became a crime den. And you couldn't move. All of the businesses had moved out except for Standard Bank and F&B. And so again, I said to the city head, Stephen Sachs, I said, Stephen, you need to do 3 things. Delineate an arts precinct in Newtown. Make sure that you have non-corrupt police policing it, excellent police, and make sure that you have the best lighting system. And I said, I promise you that in 3 years, I will walk across Mary Fitzgerald Square with my mobile phone in my hand and my laptop, and nobody will shoot me or mug me or whatever it is. 3 years down the line, exactly this came to pass. Not rocket science. What happened was we gave them a blueprint. Mary Fitzgerald Square became the center of festivals. The Africa Museum opened, restaurants opened up, galleries opened up. The old powerhouse was converted into a conference center, baseline the music thing in a factory, opened up.
Mm-hmm.
And there was an enormous resurgence. And again, I keep saying that for any city to be a smart city, it has to be an art city.
Right.
Without the arts, without creativity, without an opportunity to innovate, there is no future, neither in business, nor in science and technology, nor in sending a spaceship to the moon. If a 2001 Space Odyssey hadn't been written, and then somebody said, no, let's make this a reality, you wouldn't be there.
Right.
So this artificial divide between math and the liberal arts is, or science and the liberal arts is a foolish divide, because we know that the best nuclear physicists play the most amazing music.
Right.
And so you need both. I mean, look at the painting behind you, Anubhav, done by perhaps an unlettered traditional artist.
Right.
But look at its aesthetics. Look at the way the color has formed and it's merged, and the dynamics of it. So you need to understand scale. You need to understand all the aspects. So it's really this, more common sense information that I have because of my long hair more than anything else, that people think that I can manage that.
Common sense is not as common as we think it is.
And I think it's really exciting to see the way you talk about the impact of art, because as you probably know as well as everybody else, art has a tendency to be trivialized in many, many contexts, and that's not the way that it should. And I think what I found fascinating in the YLC context is that so many of the members here, especially the Young Leaders Council, are people who are looking for lives. Another question that I've been very keen to ask you in a management context is, you once said you need to be very passionate about the arts to work in them.
Have you lost Bindu, or is it only me?
I think so. Yeah, there's something going on with Bindu. I guess in the meanwhile, while she comes back, we'll wait for her to log on.
Yeah, Anubhav, I think you can carry on. I'll just end with her.
So Sanjoy, there were so many interesting threads that you spoke about right now, in that to my first question about mentorship, and we went across the whole thing. And what I found very interesting was about the resurgence of these cities using the arts. In that sense, can you think of an example closer to home in India where you feel that the arts have played an important role in getting a city back on the map, or putting a city on the map of India in a positive way?
Sure. So before I come to that answer, Anubhav, I just wanted to answer something that Bindu said about people not taking the arts seriously. I think one of the problems is that within the arts itself, artists and artisans don't necessarily look at themselves as providing a value proposition. And I'll again give you an example. Every 2 years there's the Culture Minister Summit, which is hosted by Scottish Parliament and hosted in Parliament in Scotland. And this, not this year, but the previous summit, because this year we didn't have it physically. What was really incredible was 3 experiments which were rolled out, which were first published in Lancet, which, as you know, is the science magazine. The first was, how did design impact Parkinson's disease? So it started with this lady who did an experiment So somebody with Parkinson's disease understands spatiality through steps, but doesn't understand a plane surface. So what she did was that she designed a role, a role of, say, whatever, flooring with steps designed. So if the person had to go from place A to place B, all she did was she rolled out the step design in front of him, and he was able to navigate it. Again, a simple solution. Similarly, for Alzheimer's, they did an experiment by these two very eminent, I forget their names, eminent scientists out of Sweden and out of Austria, where they showed how by using music, those people suffering from Alzheimer's, you could find new synapses in the brain. And they used this a former maestro, soloist, violinist from La Scala to do this experiment with, and they did it live, and that became a case study, etc. So what we have to remember is that there is a value. We do have a value, but we have to understand that value and propagate it. Coming to what you asked, Anubhav, in terms of what are the places closer home, I can give you many examples of how this has worked. So say the simplest would be Khajuraho. Khajuraho pre-COVID has the highest density of 5-star hotels in the smallest area. Why is that? One is, of course, the temple town itself is, the temples are beautiful. And if you look at the aesthetics of the temple, you'll see 1,000 years ago, the first Louis Vuitton handbag as part of the sculpture, the first Bobbi Brown lipstick being used as part of the sculpture friezes, etc., even before brand was brand. But look what happened to that tiny village of 7,000, the tiny 14 villages of 7,000 people. What it allowed is it allowed for opportunity, for employment. Each of these hotels needed people. It was in the middle of nowhere. It created an opportunity there. It allowed for the mumfliwala, to the chappal maker, to the guide in the place, to the person serving tea. Everybody found a piece of the pie. Similarly, if you look at Mysore, small, sleepy Mysore town, ever since they started propagating the Mysore Dasera festival, the Vrindavan Gardens, it's become this hub for people to go to. The Jaipur Literature Festival in Jaipur itself, if you look at any of the findings there, look at what it does to the economy of that city. And I believe that every city and village, Anubhav, in India has a history waiting to be unearthed. It's not about Delhi's Red Fort or Agra's Taj Mahal. Every village and small place, Hampi through to much of the Harappan civilization, which is covered, or the smaller places in Punjab, you can create substantial employment opportunity in these places. The problem is policy. The problem is that this part, the creative industries, comes under 8 different ministries in the government of India. So we are nobody's child, using the cliche where stepchildren to
and I know
different ministries.
You're also part of the FICCI committee where you're working very hard on like policy matters and trying to get some of these things changed and edited. So coming to that, what is the role that policy can possibly play in this whole scenario in like kind of cleaning this up or making it more streamlined rather? Sorry.
In a country like India, forget the streamline because it ain't going to happen. Is it going to be cleaned up? No, it's not. You can't clean it up because...
So how do we go about it? How do we make it...
Yeah, we have an endemic problem, and the problem is about people like us as opposed to people like them. Earlier it was English, and people like you and me and everybody in this room had access to each other because we went to public schools or universities, spoke the same language. And therefore, if we didn't get a visa or we wanted a phone connection or gas connection nahi hua ya landlord ko chitti bhejni hai, you picked up the phone, found somebody who you know, and you worked your network. People who didn't have access to this, people who don't have access to language, etc., had to pay their way. So there's an endemic systemic problem which is now going to be enhanced with the bandwidth issue, those with bandwidth as opposed to those without bandwidth. But forget that. I think policy is important in India because we're such a vast country. I mean, anything that you know, even at Salam Balak Trust, Anubhav, anything that we do, while it impacts 9,500 kids in Delhi every day or whatever, if we have to impact 1 million children or millions of children or millions of artisans, you have no choice but to go to policy. I'll give you an example of how policy goes wrong. Look at COVID-19 policy. So you have a protocol by Government of India, Hardeep Puri's aviation ministry, which allows you to sit 6 abreast on an airline, or 12 or 9 or 16 abreast, depending on what aircraft you're flying. At the same time, you have the new protocol that's been put out by Ministry of Home, which says that every alternate seat in a movie theater should only be used, so 50% capacity. Now, you're not doing that on an airline, but you're doing that in a movie theater. Why? What's the difference? Similarly, you have Government of India having put out a protocol, which we were part of, where in a heritage space, 1,633 heritage spaces in India can allow up to 5,000 people a day with COVID protocol in place, a heritage place or museum. Yet you have a new protocol issued by the Ministry of Culture and Tourism yesterday, restricting that to 200. So if you do not have a standardized protocol, a standardized, say, entertainment tax, standardized GST, which is a good thing, badly implemented, badly thought through, you're going to have chaos and a mess. Because everybody in India finds a way around the law. So then you go back to Jugaad with no respect for creating some kind of conformity. So everybody is wearing a mask, but on their chin or below their nose. And people who are now wearing their mask still don't wear their helmets. So they may be safe from COVID, but they're not going to be safe from an accident with iron-proof skulls. So this is one of the issues that we have to deal with. You must have standardized policy.
Talking about Jugaad, I think Bindu figured out her internet connection. And Bindu?
Yes, it's a very tentative Jugaad, so I'm not sure how successful it's going to be. At most Jugaad is. So my question, Sanjoy, with passion about passion, and young leaders in this, and the young and not leaders in the questions for Sanjoy, you can just share them in the chat and we can ask him. When you've said multiple times that in order to have a career in the arts, you need passion, even in art, whether it's art management or performance. How do you see this in relationship to other industries? Do you think passion is equally important, or do you think you require more passion to survive in the arts? What's your take on that?
So 2 different answers, Bindu. One is that you have to remember that if you're going into the arts, it's a lifestyle choice. So if you want your Ferrari car and your jet aircraft and blah, 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 go become a banker. It's as simple as that. But the second more important aspect is, as a young person, whoever you are, you must follow your passion. Remember, the every minute that goes by, we're not ever going to be able to revisit it again. So those people who always said to me, I'm going to do this, and once I make my 10 million, I will do that, or I will do what I want to do. Why can't you do it from day one? Because if you do what you are passionate or impassioned about, you will be successful way more than you will be by pushing a pen or pushing a file or doing something that you hate every day. Each of us, especially in India, 1.3 billion people have an arts DNA imprinted in us. From cradle to grave, from birth to death, we sing, we tell stories, it's part of our ecosystem. And what does that do? That allows us to think creatively. It allows us to be able to find ways and opportunities that many other countries cannot do. In countries in Europe, for example, or in the West, which is mind the gap between the train and the platform, or this bottle of milk has got milk in it, or this bottle of tin has got nuts in it, or whatever. The safety in which you live ensures that you start slowly becoming brain dead. You're not being able to think out of the box. But in places like India, and of course in America as well, because you're always wondering whether you're going to be shot dead tomorrow or yesterday or day after, you're always living beyond the time that you think that you have. So you're making the most of it. You're finding ways, you're finding opportunities. The millions of migrants, whether they're from Bihar, who we socially here would say, oh, the persons from Bihar kind of stuff, is the same Bihari who goes to NASA and helps sending up a NASA spacecraft into space. Why? Because we have it in us to think beyond the normal because of the way that we've been brought up. So this is what I've said to every student, sometimes to their peril. I remember I'd gone to give one of these TEDx talks to some university, and this guy came to pick me up. I think it was a engineering university. So he comes to pick me up, and I was talking with him, and he said, I do engineering. So I said, how come you've come to pick me up? I'm, as far away from engineering as chalk from cheese. And he said, no, so my whole life, I've just been impassioned with the arts. So I said, what stopped you from doing it? So he said, no, my father and mother want me to be an engineer because we're all engineers or doctors or whatever. I said, just follow your heart. This is ridiculous. So when I finished my TEDx talk in whatever the university, so he came back and I said, oh, but I thought somebody else was dropping me. He said, no, sir, I wanted to talk to you. So I swapped places with the other person, and I've told him I'll give him dinner or whatever. So I said, what happened? He said, I spoke to my father and I told him I'm going to drop out of engineering college and I'm going to pursue the arts. I'm going like, no, that's not what I said. So, there is the other side as well that we have to be conscious about. But if you are impassioned, and it could be about anything, it could be about design, it could be technology, it could be about pursuing math, it could be about science, it could be about becoming Priyamvada Natarajan and figuring out how the black hole actually swallows a star. But it's that passion that's going to get you to go that additional mile and make you that entrepreneur and make you successful. And if you don't have that, I mean, you might as well just lie down in a coffin and say, okay, my life is over.
I completely agree with you. It's just such a beautiful way to put it. I'm sure a lot of people here would love to know about the initiatives that have been going on. I've been reading a lot about them. We've participated in a couple of them as a family, on how you're supporting arts and artists during the pandemic. And I think in some sense, you are the pioneer of kind of bringing together arts and arts management in a way which I don't think has been done before in India, because you created a space where artists deeply respect what you do, and yet it's become something that's viable and sustainable and meaningful from a business context as well. And I think that's a very rare thing in India, where artists usually perceive people in the business sector with a fair, healthy amount of suspicion, much of it warranted, quite honestly. So you've created this special position for yourself with the amazing work that you've done. Now you're continuing to give back through the pandemic with some initiatives, and I think it would be really nice if we could address some of those now. What do you think, Anubhav?
Yeah, sure. That sounds like a good.
So again, it was one of those happenstance that sort of got me going when the pandemic happened. Again, long hair. I sit on a lot of these blah blah committees to talk about what can we do, and everybody beats their chest and sort of and in one of the government committees I was sitting, a very senior minister and the senior bureaucrat said to me, but Sanjay ji, ye artist ko paise kyun chahiye hota hai? आप उनको कहिए ना कि PM fund में donate करे, PM care fund पे donate करे. And I thought that they were having me on, meaning I carry on blah blah about the artist. So I thought they were yanking my chain. So I said, I hope you know that not every artist is a Shah Rukh Khan or a Sonu Nigam or a MF Hussain or a Anjali Ila Menon. But I realized then that they actually didn't know that. So I had to explain to them that this sector has, Ragi in the Gurdwara, to a Kathak dancer, the pandal maker in Bengal, to the lighting person in Chandanagar, the Bharatnatyam dancer and the Kuchipudi performer, to the toy maker in Varanasi, to the person who cleans the skin, which will go on to a mridangam. So, they had no sense of this. And because there's been this devastation, because, in earlier times, how did the arts economy or the creative cultural economy work, Bindu, in India? So if you had a natural disaster, say in Barmer or Jaisalmer or Bikaner or wherever, those artists or artisans then migrated to the next district and sang or sold or created whatever and sent money back. But here what happened in India is everything came to a standstill. So you couldn't move, you couldn't get money, you had no access. And the arts, as you know, is an insecure profession. We do not have access to banking loans, schemes, MSME, neither micro nor medium size. We don't come under any of these schemes. So you had artisans with huge inventory. So we said to government, hey, why don't you pick up the inventory and put it onto a GOI, GOV website of some kind and make sure that they get to market, because they don't want your charity. What they want is to be able to get to market. Can you help them do that? In their response, they then shut down the handloom board because they realized it was really corrupt. Okay, forget that. We then went to the Ministry of Finance, to the finance minister and a number of chief ministers. And we said, yes, we understand that you don't have money. Why? Your guess is as good as mine, because till last year, we were being told how we were headed to a 5 trillion economy or a 10 trillion economy in 1.5 days or 1.5 years or whatever. So, hey, lo and behold, suddenly all this money has gone out of the system. Suddenly. Then you're being told, oh, no, we don't have money, because you know what? I mean, this is what a minister said to me. Sanjay ji, देखिए, आपको पता है कि हमारी आर्थिक स्थिति बहुत खराब है, बैंक की आर्थिक स्थिति भी बहुत खराब है, तो हमारे पास पैसे नहीं है. So I said, that's okay. Why don't you already have a budget, right? Whatever that budget is, why don't you look at using some of that to be able to onboard artists, shoot them in a digital way, put them online, give them a royalty. Simple things. You're not spending the money there. So then they came back to say, Acha, we will include artisans in MG Narega. So then I had to explain to them that, do you know that it takes 1,000,000 times of doing one act to be able to build muscle memory? And when you're going to send them off now to break stones or dig a ditch or whatever it is, you're going to destroy that muscle memory and that bareekness of work. Can you imagine, Bindu, as a violinist, instead of playing your violin 24/7, and you know how difficult that is, you were told, no, now you go off to earn a living by breaking a brick.
Yeah.
What would it do to your violin playing? It would destroy it, because it's the delicacy of form. What people don't understand is that simple clay, what's it called? What do you do in Diwali? What's the thing you light? A diya. The simple clay diya that you buy for 2 rupees or 5 rupees and haggle with the potter. You try and throw clay on a potter's wheel and create that. We forget that when you value a craft or an art, Bindu, when you perform a concert, people have forgotten that it's taken you 15, 20, 25 years of non-stop work to be able to produce that 30-minute concert of great beauty.
Absolutely.
What's the value to that? Similarly, when somebody is weaving a Banarasi silk in Banaras, it's not just about the 1 month that they've taken on the loom. It's the work that's come through, all of this period of time. So we need to be able to understand that value. So what happened was, when this happened, we said, okay, let's tell the stories of artisans and artists. So we reached out to different artisan blogs. We got them to record little videos, send them to us. We edited it. We started putting it out. And then we realized that wasn't enough, because every artist and artisan was reaching out to us saying, we don't have money. Can you please help us eat? Can you send us whatever? So we started a feeding program. We used to put out 3.2 tons of grains and vegetables every week to feed the puppet community in Shadipur and the under the bridge community in Yamuna Pushta. And we realized that's not enough. So we started, I believe, Artmatters as an advocacy program. We started the first one with Anubhav, which was to look at traditional tribal artists and artisans. We said, how can we convert this and use technology? So we worked with a gaming company to create a virtual gallery. So it wasn't just seeing a 2D. You walked into the gallery, you walked around, you went to the painting, you read who the person was. That person popped up and talked about it. And then that's led to what we're doing now, the 6.5-hour marathon of music, theater, dance, film, literature, design, performances all together to raise resources, which we did last Sunday. We'll do again this Sunday, and we'll do it once again, the Sunday after. Right. And again, the idea is, guys, it's not just about, yes, we have A.R. Rahman, and yes, we have Kailash Kher, and yes, we have Shekhar Rafjiani, but we also have Nona, a beautiful theatre work from Kerala, and we have wonderful dancers, and we have the classical greats, including your family, Bindu. We have Vikku Vinayak Ram, we have Selva Ganesh. So the idea is, the arts is not just one or the other. The arts is all of this. And most importantly, through the arts, what we are able to show is that there isn't one truth. There isn't only it's your way or the highway. The one thing that the arts allows you, especially in India, through its syncretic traditions and its diversity, and every 100 kilometers, everything changing, it shows you that many truths can exist, coexist together peacefully. And by negating one truth or negating the other truth, you're destroying the very philosophy that the arts, Indian culture, aesthetics, design, creativity stands for. So I think it's all not my responsibility alone. And sadly, yes, I wish there were more people with more resources to be able to do this. But right now, we've sort of taken this on with the hope, Bindu, that if we are successful as a company, that there will be many other companies who will do what we're doing. In the way that the Jaipur Literature Festival became so successful and gave birth to 337 other literature festivals, everything from the Bay Book Area Festival to Ubud to Sri Lanka to across the country. We're just hoping that we can set an example and say, hey, there's value and there's tangible value in the same way that banks look at tangible value. So therefore, come join this bandwagon, not as a hobby, but as your profession.
The questions have started coming in, and we have these talking about hobby and profession for the arts. We have a question by Kumari Achal Yadav. And the question is, sir, I want to know why people of India do not take art as a profession, why they keep art as a hobby only. And then there's also a connected question, Sanjoy, by Shivam Kumar, which is, what was the impact of the new education policy in pursuing our arts as a profession? So maybe Sanjoy could take those up.
And then we have Sakshi again asking, in India, dancing and singing are considered a profession, but art is not. Why? So I think there's this concern about this overall.
Yeah. So let me start by saying that in India, it's been 72 or 73 years since independence. And there's never been an enumeration in terms of how many people earn a primary or a secondary income from the creative sector. Our understanding, and it's only an understanding, hopefully this next census, which has gone into controversy, as you all know, has this question, and we've been pushing for it, and it's in there. Hopefully it'll show up. Our estimation is that 400 million Indians derive a primary or a secondary income from the arts. And it is seen as a profession, but not recognized as a profession. That's the biggest problem, that while they are creating and weaving and performing and so on and so forth, nobody recognizes this as a sector. So that's one of the first things that we're trying to do, get it recognized as a sector and therefore a profession. I mean, Maestro Dr. L. Subramaniam, for example, what else does he do? It's not that during the day he moonlights by cooking in a restaurant. This is his 24-hour job. what does Bindu do? The music or dance, because you can't, it's not like, Maggie noodles, like you see in a lot of places. You can do 3 hours of courses over a week, and, by the 6th month, you're doing an Arangetram. No, you're not. You can't. Because it calls for a discipline, and anything that calls for a discipline for this kind of knowledge and understanding is a profession. It's not a hobby. It cannot be a hobby. The musicians of Maihar that Alauddin Khan Sahab, picked up, the 100 kids who he picked up from that village and turned into the Maihar, first Maihar orchestra. They were musicians. They learned and performed every hour of the day that they were awake. So we need to rethink ourselves when we talk about arts as a profession. The second question, far more difficult. Yes, one needs to, the fact that there is a new policy, fantastic. The fact that it talks about the arts, excellent. But what's the practicality? So the practicality is that if you were to introduce music education or theater education or visual arts education across the schools in India, which amount to a few million schools, both government, primary, secondary, public, MCD, etc., it would take you 22 years to train an adequate number of professionals in music or theater or visual arts or whatever to be able to run these courses. So when this proposition came out some time ago to the government of India, I think it was about 3 or 4 years ago when the first draft started getting formed, their solution was that, we will open up more national school of theaters across the country to churn out more people. National School of Drama will churn out 20 people per year in that school who will want to go off to Bombay to act, not necessarily as a teacher. So what it doesn't do is it doesn't introduce arts, aesthetics, creativity, ethics. And remember, when you're looking at issues like of governance or city planning or business, everything is looked at from a design perspective. How do you design a cold chain? How do you design a food chain? How do you design a raw material supply chain? Design. To be able to get, again, the creativity, the aesthetics, the form, you have to start introducing the arts, not just as, chalo music class mein bhej do. अच्छा ड्राइंग तो कर लेगा ना, अच्छा ड्राइंग नहीं करेगा चलो डांस करवा दो, अच्छा डांस नहीं, भारतनाट्यम नहीं, अच्छा चलो बॉलीवुड का क्लास में भेज दो. This is not about Bollywood, or of course later on you can do whatever you want, but the arts has to be taught as a discipline. Like math is taught, you can't teach trigonometry to a child if he doesn't know his divisions or his multiplication. The arts is no different. Why do we think that the arts is different? So the policy doesn't go far enough. And one of the problems that we're seeing, and we're tracking it as part of a Harvard study, is that in America, as you know, for the last 8 years or maybe 10 years, arts education in school budgets have been cut. So in Florida, the teacher doesn't have a budget to buy color pencils, crayons, or blank sheets of paper. Arts education has come to a standstill. So we're trying to track sociologically the difference between those kids in New York's public schooling system, which is also not great. And this is Manhattan and Queens, not New Jersey, New York and Brooklyn, versus kids in Florida, say in Spring Hill and in just off Tampa, Florida, and in Little Venice, etc. What is the impact of not having access to the arts sociologically? What does it do to them? And already in the 10-year report that's just come out, you can see the difference. You can see the difference if you are, when you're expecting as a mother play a particular music every day for your child who's in your womb as opposed to somebody who doesn't. So these are huge issues. These are sociological, practical, economic impact. And if India has to move forward as an economy, we have to move forward as a creative economy. We're not a manufacturing economy. All of you, I'm assuming here, in some way are part of the service and creative economy. Whether it's gaming, whether it's IT, whether it's technology, whether it's coding, whether it's services, whether it's consultancy.
At Sanjoy, this is a very diverse mixed group. So there could be AIMA members and YLC members come from different sectors. So there could be bankers, there could be manufacturing people, like a lot of different groups are represented. But yeah, there is definitely an aesthetic, there's a bent of mind towards arts and culture for all the people for them to have logged on to this session. Yeah, for sure. There's another question over here, which is kind of topical to COVID-19. This question is by Manjul Kumar. What's the artistic healing approach to the pandemic COVID-19? Kindly respond. So, this is, of course, I think this connects very well to the whole Artmatters campaign as well that you're running, Sanjoy, through the Teamwork Fine Arts Society. If you could tell us a little bit more about that and also answer this question.
So before I answer that question, I want to ask Sonakshi Gupta's question, who says, "Sir, you said that we should follow our passion, but what if our parents don't support it?" Well, Sonakshi, you brought up your parents really badly. If you are still listening to them and they're not listening to you, well, they should resign or you should resign. Say, listen, I'm trading you in, back to Walmart or whatever the equivalent of Walmart in India is, and I'm going to get a new set of parents because you're not up to it. There's no two ways, boss. Fight your fight. Similarly, Anubhav, before coming to your question, the other one that caught my attention was, what do you have to say about opinion on dowry and, can education solve it? No, I don't think education can solve it. I think societal norms have to solve it. Girls and boys together have to solve it. If a girl says, I am not going to get married if you're going to give, my partner's family dowry, like a number of kids recently have done, and it's made the news, in small villages where it's a huge issue, then you will solve the problem. No amount of education is going to solve this kind of stuff. And you need a strict adherence of the law, which of course we don't have, right? I mean, how was sati banned? It was a societal norm, but it was banned and it took time. How was bride burning reduced? And it has reduced because you have to put pressure. And both these are connected to what the question that you asked, Anubhav, is, COVID impact on the arts and therefore what? So of course, yes, there's been annihilation, there's been devastation, it's, it's death knell for artists and artisans. But on the other hand, I'd also say it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to stop being busy for the sake of being busy. It's an opportunity to sit down and introspect about your own art, your own work, your future. It's an opportunity to innovate. Today, technology, which has opened up, I mean, catch me having come to an AIMA, if Bindu, of course, if Bindu and Anubhav had said, then I'd have no choice but to say yes. And I would have had to travel the world. But regularly, pre-COVID, if somebody said, come to Luxembourg to give a bhashan, or come to Peru, or come to Kalinga University, my stock response is, I'm traveling, to 2025, I have a date, and please ask me then. Stock response. Now, technology has allowed us to access knowledge and information. Right? Today, I've already done, and I will continue to do through till the night, till 10 o'clock, sessions which are here in India, Australia, Hong Kong, which will start in about 15 minutes, Shashi Tharoor, and something in an hour, GLF thingamajig that broadcasts, Frankfurt Book Festival where we have a broadcast. So you have this potential and possibility of learning, knowledge, technology, creativity, design, and the breadth and width of our diversity. Make the most of it. If you're a young person out there right now, in between jobs or not wholly occupied, forget being on this 24/7. Do some learning, do some thinking, read, understand what the world has. Because this time ain't coming back. This 18 months or 2 years that we're going to go through this, economic devastation and health pandemic, it's not coming back. Use it so that when this passes, you will be motivated. You will be out there with a dozen ideas. And yes, those dozen ideas may not work. But if they don't work, what's the biggest learning you can get? Is failure. Use this time to fail. And from every failure that you have, every aspect that you do, find that learning. Don't get depressed. Ye bhi nahi hua, paise nahi bana, ye hua. Find the learning inherent in that failure. Then you can progress to the next level. And that's finally what your management skills are about, right? Learning and knowledge and just the joy of waking up. I don't know about you guys. I read 6 books at a time because I'm like, Akbar, and what did Akbar do here? And then I'm looking at a new idea of India. Then I'm looking at the Uttarakanda and what did, Sita tell Rama to go and bugger off when he said, this is not. So, and we have so much access right now.
Absolutely. And a lot of time also. Access and time we have. But now it seems like we are running out of time. It's 4:58. Bindu, do you want to see if there are any questions that are there?
I think this was a really beautiful way to wrap up, actually, when Sanjoy use this time to learn, to fail. And the third thing that I'm going to add from what he told us earlier, use this time to train your parents. So I think those are our big learnings for the day.
Absolutely.
And I want to thank you so much, Sanjoy, on behalf of AIMA and the Young Leaders Council.
Drop the G. Yes, Sanjoy is fine.
Sanjoy, that's the white hair. White hair gets you the...
No, your hair is too long for me to just call you Sanjoy. And, Anubhav and I get to take credit for a lot of these cool things, but it's really Rajni and the amazing YLC team that puts all the hard work into all these things that happen. Basically, Anubhav and I just have to comb our hair and take credit. That's kind of work. So we want to thank you so much.
And make sure our internet connections work.
For sharing your beautiful.
Thanks so much, Bindu. Thanks, Anubhav. Thanks, everybody at AIMA. Thanks, Rajni. And remember to catch I Believe Artmatters. It's on Facebook. And Give India and Teamwork Arts on Sunday starting at 5:30 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you,
Bye.
Anubhav. Thank you.
Thank you.